Good evening, folks. This is Deb and Dave, and this is the Factivist Report for Sunday, the 19th of November. And tonight's topic is going to be the Orange Jackaloon and his rhetoric and his speech. Is it really covered by free speech, or isn't it? Dave, you're on.
Hi. As you all know, those of you who watch us, and soon those of you who haven't watched us before, hello, I'm Dave. This is Deb. And we have been for weeks, I don't know how long, I feel like I'm in the middle of Heritage Foundation hell. We've been doing this for at least a month, and now we're on to the Constitution portion of this whole thing and how the Heritage Foundation bases all of their arguments on the Constitution. Do they? Not really. I mean, it's a lot of words, but sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. They don't, they kind of hedge here and there and, all of that. And I'll get into some of that. But I was going to do this anyway. And then I saw the story that Trump's gag order was lifted because it's violating his free speech. And then moments after, he basically trashed one of the court clerks and called him whatever he called them, and blah, blah, blah. Is it really free speech? I'm going to argue that those things, to me, they're not falling under free speech. So, some of this a lot of the constitutional amendments are connected. We're still going to do all of them. A lot of this has to do with the part of the 14th Amendment, specifically the insurrection portion of it. Also, I'm going to mention the Fifth Amendment and the right not to incriminate yourself. But when you enact that right 100 times during a hearing, should that eliminate you from running for office? Jennifer Rubin argues it does, and I'll get into that. But I'm not going to get a lot into other amendments. It's mostly going to be about the first.
So before we start out on this, let me give you a couple of people an update on what's going on.
Yep.
With the 14th Amendment.
Yep.
The Colorado case.
Yep.
I don't know if you heard this, did you?
I did. I did.
So the judge found that Donald Trump did, in fact, incite an insurrection, but that he could appear on the ballot for the presidency. Because according to this particular judge, the president is exempt from that whole thing about you can't run for office if you incite an insurrection. Now, I don't know what they're basing that on. I have no idea if this judge is a Trump-appointed judge. I haven't looked that up yet. I just read the article and posted it today. But I can tell you this. I really do think this is going to go to the Supreme Court. I do too. I think the people in Colorado are going to appeal this. I think there's going to be a ruling. I think it will go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until it gets to the Supreme Court. That's what I think is going to happen. And I will tell you this right now. I think that is why Jack Smith was smart enough to stay the fuck away from it when he was charging Donald Trump. He knew what he was doing. Everybody was all up in arms because, he should have invoked the 14th Amendment. You can invoke the 14th Amendment and just remove him from the ballot. No, you can't. Okay, that's a uneducated, unresearched opinion voiced by many people. But that is not the case because this thing has not been used since the Civil War. And we are now in 2023, and we have courts at all levels of government here and all levels of decision-making, state, federal, whatever. And this is how this is going to play out. Anything that's that old, that was written that long ago, and we are now here, it's going to be challenged. And we'll see where it goes from here. But so, with that.
I will touch on it. I actually have an article in here about it. I'll touch on it. I believe the argument is he can be taken off the ballot, but it's not up to the courts to do so. The Secretary of State of that state can do it. So we'll see. And it specifically states it does not exempt, the 14th Amendment does not exempt presidents. He's right in there. Okay. So, but I believe that because he is a candidate and a candidate for federal office, that's the Secretary of State's job to decide whether or not he stays or is off the ballot.
And I can guarantee you this: if the secretaries of state try to take him off the ballot, they're going to challenge that in court.
Of course they are.
They will take this as far as they possibly can.
So, and the bottom line, and we will go into it as we go into the. I think I might do a whole show on the 14th. There's some of these that I'm not going to, like the 6th or the 7th Amendment. I'm not gonna go full blown one show on. Right. This one I'm going to do like 2 or 3,
right?
Because this is one of the more important ones. It's the first, but yeah, it's going to be a big thing. The proponents of the 14th Amendment, or the people who are criticizing what's going on, basically saying that if they don't do it now, that portion of the 14th is null and void. Because the whole point of it is to prevent something like this. Right. And if they don't do it, if they don't allow it, the rule is pointless.
It's one of the only basic protections the Constitution has, basically, right. Against this kind of thing. So, I think this is going to go as far as it has to go. For it, I
do too, actually.
It's one of those topics that's, kind of like essential to democracy. So,
and remember, I said this before, when people say, why don't you just, there's a reason why they're not doing it.
Right.
These guys are smart. They're not, they've already gone through the process that you're going through hundreds of times. Even Mike Pence went through all of his lawyers to say, hey, can I really do this? And he was told no.
Right.
So what does the First Amendment state? First off, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, I will be speaking about the freedom of religion next week, and how just because you're exercising your right to worship whatever religion that you're a part of, you don't get the right to determine how other people live. Okay, that's the bottom line on that. But right now, I'm going to talk about some of the limitations of the First Amendment. Okay. So here are some of and this is from hg.org legal resources. This is like a legal helps website. So here are some of the regulations. Some laws may prevent the expression of certain ideas and messages. While presumptively impermissible, they are limited to exceptions when the government can prohibit certain forms of speech. And here are some of the examples. Fighting words. And yes, this will come back. Trump has done this a couple of times. Government may prohibit the use of fighting words. And you know what? I don't like the term may. I understand why they use it, but may prohibit the use of fighting words, which is speech that is used to inflame another and will likely incite physical retaliation. Okay. Likewise, language is meant to incite the masses towards lawless action. It's not protection. It's not protected. So incite.
Today we're going to lose our government, our country.
Right.
Yeah,
Obscenity. Most forms of obscenity are protected by the First Amendment. However, there's a high threshold that must be met in order for obscenity not to be protected, which includes showing that the language appeals to prurient interest in sex, depicts something that is patently offensive. Like, you're not going to put pornographic images on a school website. I remember the whole whitehouse.com situation. I don't know if people remember that. uh, there was a website called whitehouse.com, and kids would try to get into that, a website researching the White House, and it was a porn site.
right.
They actually shut that down or made them change the name. Child pornography, I believe that is self-evident. Libel and slander. First Amendment does not protect individuals from facing civil penalties if they defame another person or company, like Dominion, through written or verbal communication. Just ask Fox News about that. Crimes involving speech. Uh, the First Amendment does not provide protection for forms of speech that are used to commit a crime, such as perjury, extortion, or harassment. And understand, assault, of the assault and battery. Assault is the threat of physical harm. So threats. Speech is usually not protected when it constitutes a threat towards another that places the target of such speech of bodily harm or death. Uh, I know that doxing and swatting. Doxing is posting someone's personal address and personal information. Swatting is calling police officers or other law enforcement and falsely claiming that someone's committing a crime. Both of those are crimes, but the punishment is back and forth on that right now. Violation of copyright. Just just ask Deb. We gonna back down, Deb?
Nope,
No, we're not gonna back down, but we're not gonna sing the song
that's right.
on camera
Right.
because
And we're
the
not going to
petty.
sing the song
Right,
at a rally.
right. There's a whole big thing about the use of the Tom Petty song "Won't Back Down,"
And
and the,
the Trump family is getting around that by having Lara Trump record a country version of that.
oh yeah, that's gonna work.
Oh, it's out there.
I know.
It's scary.
So there's conduct regulations in commercial speech, but most of what I'm going to be talking about, honestly, is the illegal action, promoting the illegal action of insurrection, number one, and number two, incitement. Just so you know. So the Heritage Foundation, what do they say about it? True threats and the limits of First Amendment protection. So they're saying that First Amendment does have limitations. It does guarantee every person the right of free speech, but that right is not absolute. And to not violate copyright, the authors of this from December 8th, 2014 were Paul Larkin and Jordan Richardson of the Heritage Foundation. Okay. Among this category of unprotected speech are true threats, statements in which a speaker expresses a serious intent to commit an act of unlawful violence to a particular individual or group of individuals. Donald Trump has done this several times, so you know. Now, this was in 2014, so it wasn't, obviously this this was written before the whole Donald Trump thing, but this is what the Heritage Foundation president at the time said about the January 6th committee back in June 9th of 2022. This was still Kevin Roberts, who's the president now, too. He made the following statement in advance of the House of Representatives January 6th public committee hearing. The American people, I love it when the Heritage Foundation speaks for the American people, just so you know.
Well, they're American people, maybe.
Yeah, our American people are fed up with Democratic congressional leadership, and for good reason. By the way,
That's
it
the
was a
proper use of the word democratic, by the way. They
yeah,
don't.
it was a bipartisan. I don't care. I don't care what they think. Kinzinger and Cheney were Republicans. Yeah, they kicked them out, or they were voted out, but they were still Republicans,
And
and y'all
the
had a chance,
reason that they didn't have 6
right?
and 6 is because when Kevin McCarthy gave the list of the people from the Republican side, it was people like Jim Jordan,
Right,
okay, who participated in the insurrection.
right,
So that's not happening. So this is
right.
on them, okay? This is on them. They refused. They refused to participate. They refused to help. They refused. The only two that did are now outlaws for the Republican Party, but they did.
I'm pretty much going to read this whole thing because there's one very important thing that they said
Okay.
in this little blurb
Yeah.
that's important. The primetime spectacle Democrats planned for tonight's January 6th congressional hearing is yet another example of Speaker Nancy Pelosi's naked partisanship. I don't know what that means, and misplaced
Misplaced priorities.
priorities.
Really.
Democrats are so brazen, they've even hired the former president of ABC News to turn the hearings into a made for TV political theater. You can expect a one sided partisan narrative intent on slandering the left's political opponents. They're fully aware of how to do that, starting with former President Donald Trump and extending to other conservatives that has nothing to do with strengthening our republic and everything to do with distracting from their abysmal failures in every major policy area. What have you done yourselves? By the way, anyone, I didn't put it in here because it's kind of going in the weeds, but I will mention it very quickly. Chip Roy, for once, he was right when he said that the Republicans have done nothing.
But Chip Roy, by the way,
Was part of it.
was part of the reason they did nothing. So
Right.
Let's
Okay.
get real about that.
So here we go. This is amazing, actually. What happened on January 6th was wrong. Oh my God. Okay. But unlike the violent riots that did so much damage to our country during the summer of 2020, that's the George Floyd stuff, by the way. The events of January 6th was subject to one of the largest investigations in our history. If Speaker Pelosi genuinely cares about justice, blah blah blah, they want them to investigate Black lives.
That's really the bottom line. And you know what? That's not going to happen because guess what? The reason for those riots was because someone put their knee on George Floyd's neck. Okay. And that is not the same as what happened on January 6, 2021, because those riots were a reaction to an injustice that happened to that community. January 6th was a well-planned event. Okay, we now know that. And the one thing I'm going to say to this about this whole January 6th complaint here, the January 6th committee hearings were some of the best things that were ever put on television. Okay, they were evidence, and that's what they didn't like about it, was that all the evidence was here and people turned on Trump.
Right.
That's what they really didn't like about it, and that's why they're talking about this way. What could be more of a priority than investigating how this country almost lost its democracy? There is no other priority.
So, one thing, we talk about proof of intent when it comes to, keeping people from speaking, or when speaking becomes illegal. If you notice, yeah, they said that the riots were wrong, but then they deflected, and then they called for a boycott of the networks. By the way, but they didn't say anything about Donald Trump because Donald Trump's their boy. So, and Trump and even now, by the way, Trump has stated that he truly believes that he was cheated out of the election. There is evidence out there, pretty much overwhelming evidence, that he already knew, and he knew what he was doing, et cetera, et cetera.
And he was embarrassed that he lost to Joe Biden.
Right.
Really?
Now, there were so many.
Donald Trump was our president.
There were so many. All I ask you guys to do, and it may be, this may change when you do this search in Microsoft Bing, Google, whatever, Google search, DuckDuckGo, wherever you want to do. Are Trump's true social comments considered true threats? Because in order for that to be considered, illegal, it has to be or incitement, it has to be considered a true, credible threat. Here are all of the articles from different times, by the way. Way more than 5 pages, by the way. I did put in a couple of the more damning ones. One of the things that was brought up in terms of the gag orders is that gag orders are usually preemptive. And that's why, you're preventing someone from saying something they haven't even said yet. That is not the case with Donald Trump. He has consistently made disparaging remarks about other people, made threats, et cetera, et cetera.
He's threatened prosecutors.
Exactly.
He's threatened poll workers. He slandered poll workers, and he doesn't stop.
And this is an article just generally about gag orders and why they are potentially a violation of First Amendment rights. And you can take a look at it. But my response to that is, this was back in March. On True Social, Trump warns of potential death and destruction if he's charged in hush money probe. What else do you need? This was back in March. This isn't the only one either. Also, Trump supporters and those who he has endorsed have also engaged in that stuff. Who do you think is front and center? There we go. There's Kari Lake right there.
Well, wait. You didn't hear about the new Kari Lake, did you?
Who is that?
She's a divider. She wants to be a uniter. She's not an election denier. I'm sitting here listening to this and I'm going, really?
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, now that she's realized she's alienated half the state of Arizona,
Well, maybe half the country too.
Yeah. Well, good. We hope.
Ruben
Gallego, Senator, Arizona. That's all I'm going to say.
Just read some of it. Are these credible threats? Remember, the man was the leader of the free world. All right. He has means, and he has people who will follow him. You saw it January 6, 2021.
And by the way, they just released all of the tapes from that day. Okay. It was not fake. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit into that, but a couple of articles from opinion articles from one of your favorite people, Jennifer Rubin from the Washington Post. Taking the Fifth, should disqualify a politician from taking office, especially when he invokes the fifth, how many times? More than 400 times. So she's basically saying that he's basically admitting to possibly incriminating himself. A president, this is Lawrence H. Tribe, a constitutional scholar at Harvard Law School, explains that a president has a constitutional as well as a moral duty to see to it that the laws are faithfully executed, not just a passive duty to avoid violating the law, especially the president of the United States. This was from August 17th of last year.
I mean, I don't know if it was me, and I was listening to this guy, and he was being asked questions, and he took the fifth 400 times. My instant reaction would be, this guy's guilty as hell, because that's
Right.
a protection against self-incrimination.
Right. Now,
Why
this
would
is
you
from
vote for a guy that's taken the fifth 400 times? Ask yourselves that question.
This is from August 29th, 2023. I know that Colorado judge recently ruled that Donald Trump was complicit in the insurrection. However, he felt as though he could not keep Trump off the ballot. Maybe, just maybe, secretaries of state can do that. So just understand, if Trump is kept off the ballot, it's probably going to the Supreme Court. And
Probably will.
let's make that not an issue. Just don't vote for the guy.
We have the ultimate power. We don't have to meet any standards. We don't have to meet any legal requirements. We are strictly the court of public opinion. All we've got to do is vote. That's it.
Now, real quick, the 14th Amendment, and it's not showing. Okay, it's from this this source called Verify. Yes, the 14th Amendment insurrection clause applies to members of Congress, but don't count on that, by the way.
Because again, that will be challenged. It's
right.
Just because it has not been used for so long. It's going to be challenged because they can. Okay.
The 14th Amendment, the insurrection clause, was put in there because the country just went through an insurrection.
Right. Civil War.
So, which is now leads us to a lag, and also to the next portion of the program, which is, yes, the insurrection happened. Okay, this is ProPublica. We've shown it over and over again. There's another article listing all of the people who were complicit in trying to spread the big lie. Just because someone is in Congress and they say, "Yeah, I believe," that doesn't mean they're going to get kicked out of Congress either. By the way,
right?
Just so you know, it's not that easy. Get off your couch and vote, for God's sake.
And even if, at the end of the day, even if they determine he can't be on the ballot, it ain't going to be before the election. These things are going to drag out because it will be challenged at different levels of the legal system until it gets to the Supreme Court.
Right. So Speaker Mike Johnson says he will release all non-sensitive January 6th footage in a move to please the far right. Now, I don't know how he will determine what is sensitive and non-sensitive. But in all honesty, most, if not all of this is already out. And
these people videoed themselves breaking the law.
Right.
Anything you see on ProPublica was what they put up on Parler.
And
they took Parler down.
Liz Cheney basically reacted and said, "Good." You know, now people will see. By the way, these people who were part of this insurrection, including Hornhead Man, remember him? He's running in Arizona, right?
Yep.
So they're not going away.
Nope.
I don't think I'm going to do something. I may or may not do a show on the press, because the press is part of this. The freedom of the press. But with freedom, personally, I feel like there needs to be a way to hold the press accountable other than major lawsuits, because many people can't afford to do something like this. Uh, Fox News did lose a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Dominion Voting Systems because
And,
they admitted to defaming the company.
and
There's another one coming too.
hasn't stopped them from lying. They're still
Right.
at it. And by the way, let me just say this. Smartmatic, their trial against Fox, I don't know if this is going to hold true, but a few months ago, Smartmatic promised that they were not going to settle the way Dominion did. So we'll see what happens with that one.
And if Fox News loses, it could bankrupt them.
It could.
We'll see. But then you'll just have, you know, friggin' right side news and OAN and Newsmax take over the cesspool. So here is, I understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it. New York judge lifts gag order that barred Donald Trump from maligning court staff in fraud trial. My point being that he had already spewed bile on True Social and threats and all of that. Now, mere hours after the gag order was lifted, yeah, he talked about that court clerk again.
Unbelievable.
He basically says that the court clerk is biased.
The court clerk is an advisor. The court clerk is not making the decisions. Judge Engoron is making all the decisions himself. He's already stated that.
Now, here's the point of doing this, I believe. I recently went to federal court, okay? And when you go to federal court and you are potentially part of a jury, you are asked numerous questions, and they want to make sure that you have not been prejudiced, or you're not biased in one way or another, that you're not affected one way or another. Something like this could throw this into a tailspin in terms of trying to find jurors. It's going to be much more difficult to find unbiased jurors at this point.
And that's just exactly what he's counting on.
So, going into intent and going into, did Trump know? One of the articles that I mentioned said that Trump truly believed. First off, let me go back to the death and destruction thing. So when the right wing wants to criticize a Democrat, they'll stop at nothing. But I forgot about this. I want to mention it though. Republican lawmakers have rallied around the former president since he predicted he'd be arrested, using their House majority to call on Bragg to testify before Congress. Several declined to engage on Trump's death and destruction post on Friday. Rep. Jim Jordan, a Republican of Ohio, said he hadn't seen the post, and then NBC News showed him the post. I don't know if people remember this. Jordan said he couldn't read well without his glasses.
What a putz.
But see, again, the First Amendment will hold true when they're spreading garbage and when they're spreading bile, and when Marjorie Taylor Greene says that Pelosi should be executed or whatever. and then, oh, we didn't really mean it. And then something like that would happen. Uh, uh, so to go to intent and knowledge, Sidney Powell just flipped on Trump. And so, we also had Jenna Ellis testified, which basically she said, listen, he knew and he was all for it, and he didn't feel like he was going to have to leave, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, nah. I think that most people in the legal system want Trump to continue to talk to bury himself, to be honest with you. But the parts in which Donald Trump should not be allowed to speak, or his followers should not be allowed to speak, is when they incite, when they talk about death and destruction, or if you come after me, I'll come after you. I have my army of people, blah, blah, blah. So next, I'm going to go into quickly Mike Johnson and his involvement in January 6th, which kind of leads into what's going to happen next week. And this is something Deb isn't even aware of, I don't think, because I wasn't able to talk to her about it. Here we go. Deb, are you ready? This is something I actually found out today. Mike Johnson has ties to yet another Christian movement that played a key role in spreading Trump's big lie.
I actually do this because
Oh, you knew about it?
I
Okay.
subscribe to Mother Jones.
Okay. I didn't know if you saw this particular thing because we haven't talked about
I
it.
haven't read the whole thing yet. I haven't.
Yeah. One more red flag in the ongoing parade, made up of almost exclusively red flags, by Ariana Coghill. I don't know when this was written, but trust me, it was recent. So I'm going to read the first three paragraphs actually. Rep. Johnson became Speaker of the House less than a month ago. Since then, a national audience had become aware of a slew of questionable remarks, and that's what happens when you become like highly visible. By the way,
yeah, nobody. A lot of people never really even knew this guy existed.
yeah, I didn't
In the
know.
bowels of the Louisiana Bayou.
And the bowels of the ass of the Louisiana government.
Right.
Uh, so they've become aware of a slew of questionable remarks, associations, and policy positions. No, Mother Jones, I would not like to let an algorithm decide. The congressman has been criticized for blaming school shootings on no fault of horses. He's been critiqued for working hand in hand with legislators like MTG to gut gender affirming care for teens. And it's been mentioned that Johnson even claimed that if people gave birth to more able bodied workers, then Republicans wouldn't need to cut Social Security and Medicaid.
So, can I just say something about
Yeah.
this thing about blaming school shootings on no fault of horses?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just tell you something. It's the guns. You know how I know that? Because my state has had no fault divorce for I don't know how long. And guess what? We don't have school shootings here.
Right.
Okay. We have not, and I'm knocking on wood. We have never had a school shooting here. Not one. You want to know why? We actually have gun laws here in Massachusetts.
Right. Where could he get such ideas?
Well, he pulls them out of his.
Well,
Yeah.
there have been extensive reporting on Johnson's connections to Christian nationalist organizations, too. Now, another troubling fact about the House's most powerful man has surfaced. On Wednesday, so I don't know what Wednesday that is. I didn't see the date of this.
This is since he became. So when did he become speaker? This was written a week after he became speaker.
So it was like three weeks ago he became speaker or something like that.
Yep.
I don't know. On Wednesday, NPR reported that the speaker has ties to yet a new group. Well, and a new group to me. Let's put it that way. They've been around for over a decade at least. To the new apostolic
Apostolic.
Apostolic, thank you.
You have to be
Reformation,
careful about
an extreme far-right Christian movement seeking to dissolve the United States separation from church and state by any means necessary. Johnson reportedly has fostered relationships with several NAR leaders, including Pastor Jim Gorlow, who has hosted prayer sessions for U.S. election integrity.
that. I needed to.
So the point being that these guys met. Let's see here. Let me see if they met before. Let's see if I can find it. Da-da. There we go. NAR adherents shares goals with other conservative Christians, outlawing abortion, fighting marriage equality, and were especially instrumental in the movement to keep a defeated Trump in power. In his audio documentary Charismatic Revival Theory, Matthew Taylor, a scholar at Baltimore's Institute for Islamic, Christian, and Jewish Studies, explains how 15 charismatic leaders with high-level Trump administration officials in the lead up to January 6th discuss spiritual warfare strategies of the 6 protest permits issued that day. 4 went to NAR-affiliated charismatic church groups. A lot of NAR people just embrace the big lie. Says,
you know why? I'll tell you why. Because people who are strong believers in God believe in faith, and they don't have to see anything, they don't have to know anything, and there doesn't have to be any evidence. That's the beauty of religion. You believe in shit you can't see.
So this is an article from the Texas Observer talking about this group, the radical theology that could make religious freedom a thing of the past. This is by David Brockman, June 6, 2016. Okay. So Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, you saw Teddy Cruz up there. He was actually clean shaven back then, so you know it's been a while.
He looks better with a beard. Dominionism is a scary thing.
And this is all about dominionism, okay?
And dominionism, by the way, is nothing new, by the way. I just want to let you know.
Right.
We were talking about this when Michelle Bachmann was a senator. This was a real thing. This was a thing even back when W was around.
And so I wanted to mention this. Top Texas political figures have had links to dominionism for years. In 2011, the Observer covered then Governor Rick Perry's ties to a branch of the movement, the New Apostolic. That's going to kill me. Reformation. Since then, the relationship between dominionism and right-wing politics has become even cozier. Case in point, Ted Cruz. Although Cruz is too politically savvy to openly endorse dominionism, key figures on his team are explicit dominionists, including his father, evangelist Rafael Cruz. So you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I want. Let me see. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's fun.
I wonder why.
404. I don't know. Okay. Oh, this is okay. Well, that was an article on the First Amendment. Deb already has it. Basically, what they said something to the effect of the history of the First Amendment and the reasons for why the founders put it in there are kind of fuzzy. Yeah. Here's something I wanted to mention. I just saw this in one of their little events pages. November 28th, for the promotion of learning and virtue, moral education. You know what? No, nobody gets to teach me my morals. There's there's a way to do that, you know. I don't know.
You know something? I went to Catholic school, okay?
Yeah.
All right. And I have a lot of friends who didn't go to Catholic school. And I'm not going to say that I'm any more moral than any of them, because I'm not. That's not what we need, okay? That is not what we need in school. We don't need people teaching morality based on Christianity, because that's what it's going to be. And again,
Right.
it's just more erosion of the separation between church and state. That's all this is. They don't give a shit whether you learn to be moral or not. That's not their goal. Their goal is to control the masses with religion. It
Right.
is. It's a plain and simple fact.
You can't be gay. You can't have sex outside of marriage unless you're part of our group. You can't do this. You can't do that. And we've seen time and time again how the religious uh,
Yeah, we'll have Sharia law
people
here.
can be absolute hypocrites
It'll be
when it
Christian
comes,
Sharia law here. That's what it'll be.
yeah,
That's exactly
sexual
what it's about.
abusers of kids and all that stuff. You know, how misogynistic uh, religious figures have been towards women. I remember when I was 5 years old, our pastor smacked my mom on the bum. And I was like, Mom, what is that? She's like, don't pay any attention. I remembered that. I didn't even understand it at the time, but I understood it years later that he was hitting on her. I didn't know. I was like, I was like, Mom, is that like a handshake or something or a hello? I was about to smack her on him. No, but it's like the freedom of religion does not give you the right to dictate how someone else lives, and that is where the 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 separation of church and state comes into play, and we'll talk about it. Okay, that's one of the things that's a big hardcore uh, sticking point for people like Deb and myself, and right wing dominionists like uh, Mike Johnson and the Heritage Foundation and all these freaking organizations that have been popping up all over the place. We didn't even know about these things until very recently. I had no idea all these organizations were around.
Well, you know, like I said, I've been looking at dominionism for a long time. I can tell you that since I looked at it back in the 90s and now there are a lot more groups involved. Call it what you want, splinter groups, whatever they are.
Right, right.
Uh, but there are a lot more groups in play right now. And that's by design, folks.
One thing I'll say is congratulations to all of you. I believe there were like 16 candidates and one of them got in. All of you who voted against Moms for Liberty candidates.
One out
Local
of 13. One out of
one
13.
out of 13. Okay.
They endorsed 13, only one was in. I don't even know what state it was in. Um, I can't even remember. I did read the article, but I can't remember. But they did not. Their message is not popular. This is what I'm telling you. If the Democratic voters get out and vote, they're not going to win. They only win when we don't vote. These policies are not popular. They're popular with MAGA. Write them off. Don't even discuss this with them anymore. They're in a cult. Okay?
Right.
Total cult. They do not want to think for themselves. They are firmly in the Trump wheelhouse. They're not going to change. Don't waste your time on them. Get yourself together and get the Democratic vote out. That's
And
here right now.
I'm all for, listen, familiarize yourself with the Heritage Foundation, that's fine. But understand when they say Americans, they're talking about their group. Okay. They're
They're
not
talking about
talking
their
about
version of what Americans are.
right,
Straight, mostly men and women who know their place.
right.
That's it.
White, white.
White. That's what I said. White, straight, and mostly men and women who know their place. That's what they are. That's what they're talking about. When they talk about breaking the separation of church and state, everyone who lives here is going to have to be Christian, because they're not going to teach Islam. They're not going to teach Buddhism. They're not
Right.
going to teach any of that. That stuff doesn't matter to them. That stuff does not exist. All that matters is Christianity. Warning you now, okay? I'm warning you now that they have been with their fingers in the backs of the politicians for decades, and they're finally getting their way. Christian nationalism is now not just coming from outside the government. Mike Johnson is a Christian nationalist. Period. No,
and here's the problem. Or here's the problem. They exposed him too early. They they threw him out there too early. People are not numb enough yet. And I'm so glad that he came out, because I didn't know who he was. Okay.
Yep.
It is now coming out how much the religious right is trying to shove morality down your throats. If you are gay, or if you are human and believe that people should be able to live how they want to live as long as they are consenting adults, pay attention.
On your rights.
Right.
Which they're not.
One of these days, something's going to happen. You're going to try to get condoms or birth control pills. You're not going to be able to get them. You know, you want to get a vasectomy. They're not going to be legal anymore, men.
I'm warning you.
You're going to want to go to a club. Don't even bother going to a club. There'll be cops everywhere. If you're getting close, if you get to second base, there'll be a second base clause or a second base law or whatever. You know, no sex outside of marriage, unless
by the way, in marriage, no birth control.
No birth control.
Going. If you can't see this, it's amazing. They're already talking about. They had the guy from the Heritage Foundation say, one day we hope to say that birth control was a mistake. Okay, listen to what they're saying. They're not hiding it now.
And they are trying to shove the LGBTQ community back in the closet and close the door.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
You're not going to take me alive. I can tell you that.
But the thing is, kids who are just discovering who they are, just expect the suicide rates to dramatically increase.
Yep.
All right. So that's what we have for this week. Have a lovely Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a lovely Indigenous Peoples Day. How's that?
Yeah, we're having a not Thanksgiving this year.
Right. Well, yeah. Lynn and I we're just gonna have a good lunch, and I'm gonna have to, I'll go to work and bank my holiday.
Yep.
So, but yeah, feel free. You are well within your rights to call it Indigenous Peoples Day. By the way, that's your.
Will we do a turkey shoot this Thursday? I don't know.
I don't know.
Turkey shoot.
Have to do it early, or you mean like as a show?
No, do it. I was thinking we're gonna do it online. I got my turkey hat. What the heck?
I do go to work at 6:30, but
oh no, it won't be. It'll be daytime.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. I got to think about it. I did one last year.
Yeah, but guys,
a lot of turkeys this year.
By the way, we did do a short show. Exercising your right to free speech doesn't necessarily mean flipping off your boss or telling a cop to go F himself or whatever. Not the smartest thing to do in the world, right, guys. So
we'll see you next Monday.
Have a good week, y'all.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yep. That's right. Through the pilgrims,
Yeah.
It's like I said to somebody at work. I don't know what somebody said something at work about the pilgrims and having dinner with the Native Americans, and I looked at them and I said, "You still believe that?" I said, "Yeah, they may have. They went out and slaughtered 389 of them for dessert." I said, "So So celebrate
the big lie of a peaceful, a peaceful dinner with Indigenous Peoples Day by stuffing your face and watching 300-pound men beat the shit out of each other and give each other concussions, during football games. Have
That's
fun,
an
y'all.
American idea of Thanksgiving. Just saying. Talk to you later.